thank the gentleman. Is there anybody else that seeks recognition on the panel before? Yeah, Mr. Grayson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this hearing. I find this very interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherman, and members of the committee. It really is an honor to. The notion that they can keep a dozen or 2 dozen bombs, and as long as we deter them, we're safe, is completely wrong. Because should any crisis develop on the peninsula, North Korea is developing these nuclear capabilities at the expense of massive degrading of their conventional capabilities. And so what that means is if we're ever in a military crisis, they immediately have to shoot up the escalation ladder, and that immediately forces us to consider preemption. So it's a highly unstable situation. There are different estimates between $250 million to over $2 billion of hard currency.
That when you threaten sanctions, when you have the executive authorities to do so, and the Chinese take you seriously, that yes, you can motivate their behavior. There was also the discussion earlier about bolstering missile defense in the region. And I do think that taking steps that defend American interests and the interests of our allies, and if they happen to create a more negative security environment for China in the region, that may motivate the Chinese to do more as well. This is not something that they want to see. It doesn't benefit their interests.
I think that what may come of all of this is that we may find that reunification of Korea.
There are easily contingencies one can imagine where a country, especially North Korea, can miscalculate. And I can draw out some of those scenarios for you in which they have no intent to use nuclear weapons, but because of military miscalculations, they are then compelled to. And that is what's so inherently destabilizing about the current situation.
Ms. Glaser? And both of the other panelists are free to comment as well.
We have to engage North Korea in a way that they understand that there are steps that they have to take. They have to go back to these commitments of giving up nuclear weapons. And if they're willing to go ahead with a freeze as a first step, with the understanding that the goal is that they eventually give them up, then I think the United States has always been willing to work with that. I don't think there are signs that under Kim Jong-un that the North Koreans are willing to engage in serious negotiations with the end goal of denuclearizing the peninsula.
Mr. Connolly raised the issue that they don't really have much to export. Possibly they could export